Alrighty, friendos, welcome back to another episode of my Mass Effect Codex. We have just finished up Theros, so as per usual, after we're finished with big planets in the game, with the main planets in the game, we read all the new Codex entries.
The Asari were the first.
None of those are new.
After the Geth secure, Varen are omnivores with a preference for living prey. Originally native to the Krogan homeworld of Tuchanka, they are, like most life from Tuchanka, savage, clannish, and consummate survivors. They are pack hunters when vulnerable prey is readily available, and become scavengers when outnumbered or outclassed. Their supreme adaptability, vicious demeanor, and rapid breeding cycle have made them ubiquitous and dangerous pests on many worlds. Virtually everywhere the Krogan have been, Varen infestations have followed, wreaking havoc with the native ecology. The Krogan have had a love-hate relationship with Varen for millennia, alternately fighting them for territory and embracing them as treasured companions. To this day, Krogan raise them as beasts of war. One of the common subgenus of Varen has metallic silver scales, leading to the rather unusual nickname fish dogs.
And you can see that where the name comes from, because it's not just the scales, it's the shape and the kind of finish growths, the sort of finish offshoots on their skin. I can certainly see that. But Varen are cool, and it makes so much sense that Krogan would have the relationship with Varen that they do. Pretty darn interesting. We see a lot about Varen throughout the series. I'm specifically reminded of ME2 when we actually go to Tuchanka. So I'm really hyped about that. I like the idea of Varen. They're cool. I kind of wish they existed, but also I feel like that'd be a bad idea because there's enough dangerous animals in the world. You know what I mean? Especially because they're extremely quick breeders and they tend to infest any planet they even touch for some reason. That's a recipe for disaster. Has probably been a disaster in several places, but very cool. I love Varen. Krogan is best friend, but also best enemy, because Krogan are Varen, and Varen are Varen. I don't know what else to say about that. Oh yeah, it looks like... Let's see here. Okay, so we do have planets and locations and ships and vehicles. I'm going to be skipping over ships and vehicles as I have started doing, because I've realized that I'm more interested in ecology, biology, especially culture and racial stuff, and history, and not the super sciencey stuff, but the stuff that's more creative than super science-based. Even though, yes, I do like the creativity of the technology, I just have been moving farther away from interest in that and more interest in closer and closer into more interest for every other part of Mass Effect. I love the creativity and the different creatures and races and cultures and how they interact a little bit more than tech, even though tech is interesting and I have definitely played with tech ideas in my own stories. Recently I'm just not feeling reading stuff like ships and vehicles, but we will be reading planets and locations.
Pharos is a habitable world in the Attican Beta Cluster. 2/3 of the habitable surface is covered with the ruins of a crumbling Prothean megatropolis. In the millennia since the Prothean extinction, the ruins have been repeatedly picked over by looters many times. Pharos was considered a poor prospect for colonization, as little open ground remains for agriculture. The only sizable freshwater sources are the poles, which are tapped by the decaying Prothean aqueduct systems. The dead cities, while in good condition considering their antiquity, are of uncertain stability. Ground level is congested by a dozen meters of fallen debris, and the air is fouled by dust. In 2178, the Human Exogeny Corporation announced its intention to place a permanent colony on Pharos to thoroughly explore the ruins. The pioneer settlement was placed on the upper levels of several intact skyscrapers, using the surviving Prothean aqueducts and rooftop hydroponic gardens to support the population.
Very interesting. So apparently those were aqueducts. So this must have been, and they were in hydroponic gardens. So this must have been a very water-rich world that doesn't seem to be that anymore. Very interesting.
Virmire is a lush world located on the frontier of the Attican Traverse. Its vast seas and orbital position on the inner life zone have created a wide equatorial band of humid, tropical terrain. Only the political instability of the region has impeded efforts at colonization. Many times the Citadel has opened negotiations to settle Virmire with various criminal gangs and petty dictatorships in the nearby terminus systems. All fell apart due to internal power shifts within the opposing parties. The Citadel has written off the colonization of Virmire as impossible without significant political change. The terminus powers themselves are unlikely to ever settle Virmire. Most lack the resources to support settlement of a virgin world, finding it more expedient to steal from their neighbors than build for themselves.
So Virmire is interesting. It's definitely pretty, and we're about to go there. So yeah, we're going to be seeing that place firsthand a little bit here. Nice little precursor to kind of prepare us for that place. Skipping over to vehicles, secondary time. Seems like a lot of secondary reading. Let's get to it. I know I've read Asari culture and government. Asari religion. The pantheistic mainstream Asari religion is Siari. Asari Siari. Interesting. I'm pretty sure that the writers were sitting around like, what should we call this, the Asari religion? What about just like arrange the letters around? It's called Siari. Wow, amazing. And they went with that. I almost swear that's what happened. But yeah, it's cool. Siari, Asari. It sounds different enough, you know. Which roughly translates roughly to all is one. So question, what does Asari translate to? If Siari translates to all is one? Like, what would it translate to if you literally flipped a few letters around? The faithful agree on certain core truths. The universe is a consciousness, every life within it is an aspect of the greater whole, and death is a merging of one's spiritual energy back into the greater universal consciousness. This is actually a really fleshed out religion already, just with those sentences. Very interesting. Sierras don't specifically believe in reincarnation. They believe that spiritual energy returned to the universal consciousness upon death will eventually be used to fill new mortal vessels. Siari became popular after the Asari left their homeworld and discovered their ability to meld with nearly any form of life. This ability is seen as proof that all life is fundamentally similar. Makes sense. And that also really makes sense as to why a lot of Asari are just very down to earth and welcoming and very, very well diplomatic, very good diplomats and such. I don't know if welcome is the right word, but they're good diplomats, and they, you know, it makes sense. Like Asari culture is very interesting because a lot of culture is very internal. I've noticed that a lot of Asari culture is very external, at least recently, especially around mating. Like, it's literally seen as a taboo for an Asari to have a child with another Asari. Like, if you think about that, if it was taboo for a human to have a child with another human, now granted we don't have, you know, we are not at least aware of, you know, other, and possibly don't have other sentient species in our galaxy that we have intermingled with. But, you know, if we did, you know, and it was possible to support life between, you know, both, then it, you know, it would be really weird if, like, humans, it was seen as taboo for a human to have a child with another human. That's kind of basically what's going on here. It's very interesting. A lot of Asari seem to believe that that they need to continue to lend genetic diversity to their species. Thus, that's why, mating with a member or perhaps several members over a lifetime, probably more that because of how long they live compared to basically every other main sentient race that we've been introduced to. As far as I know, absolutely all of them in the Asari are the longest lived, but don't quote me on that. Siari priestesses see their role as promoting unity between the disparate shards of the universe's awareness. Yeah, see, again, unity is a big thing for Asari, and it goes back to their general, most popular beliefs regarding mating, and the whole pure blood thing being a bad thing. It's very interesting. Before the rise of Siari pantheism, Asari religions were as diverse as their political opinions. Very interesting. The strongest survivor of those days is the monotheistic religion worshipping the goddess Athame. Like the Asari, the goddess cycles through the triple aspects of maiden, matron, and matriarch. Very interesting. Solarians, special task group. Solarian intelligence field agents are grouped into an organization called the Special Tasks Group. STG operators work in independent cells, performing dangerous missions such as counterterrorism, infiltration, reconnaissance, assassination, and sabotage. You would think that Solarians wouldn't be cut out for this sort of thing. There's this weird, I've noticed there's the game almost seems to lend itself to the Solarian stereotype that they're all nerds, basically. But no. They're brilliant, but their skill sets are clearly as diverse as any other species. I mean, STG is apparently a really, really well-known hardcore group of military individuals. They pull off some pretty dangerous business. Very nice. The STG is a proactive organization, puncturing worrisome trends before they become movements. At any time, a dozen groups are operating covertly within the lawless terminus systems, sowing dissent among the various factions. Interesting. The civilian analysts also note how troublesome hinge point individuals in terminus frequently meet unexpected deaths. By STG. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense that they would expect that. And it's probably what is happening. I'm not sure what hinge point means, like a person that has particularly a lot of power and might be a danger to, the Citadel space. That's what I'm basically guessing hinge point essentially means. But I don't think I've ever heard that term before, or if it's anything that relates back to real life in any way. If y'all know, I would like to hear and learn in the comments about it. STG operators are feared throughout the galaxy for their clear-eyed, remorseless practicality. They are willing to do whatever it takes to achieve their mission, even if it kills civilians or results in the team's own destruction. In many ways, they are akin to the Council's Spectres. Very interesting. And I'm sure I feel like there's probably Solarian Spectres too, which is interesting. And I bet a lot of Solarian Spectres were probably ex-STG, I would imagine, if they do exist. I'm pretty sure there's at least been one or two Solarian Spectres. There's no way there hasn't been. At least I'm guessing. Anyway, recently, a number of STG cells have been redeployed from Solarian Union. It is assumed they are in Terminus and Attican Traverse. They are in the Terminus and Attican Traverse, or I'm guessing you would call that Traverses. Or at least that's what I would write that. That's how I would write that. With that extra S at the end of Traverse. Investigating reports of Geth activity beyond the Perseus Veil. Grammar is a little bit more malleable than I think. A lot of people think there's extremely ground set rules, but some things sound awkward if you try to really be careful with the grammar sometimes. That, I feel like, is maybe a result of that, but it also might just be poor grammar. Let me know, friends, if you know one or the other. Because honestly, I feel like harping on grammar and having a super, super, ultra rigid knowledge of it is a little bit ridiculous in the grand scheme of things when you're just being a writer in anything. Words can get things across even if they don't quite, fit complete grammar. And it's just difficult to make an extremely correct sentence, like absolutely 100% correct. There's so many rules in grammar. We're only human, you know what I mean? And of course, you need to try your best to do the best grammar, and that is what I do when I write. And I know for a fact I don't have perfect grammar, but I definitely have serviceable grammar. I'd say most people do as well. So it's just a matter of that. Alright. Turians Biology. The Turian homeworld, Playin, has a metal pore core. Metal pore core, that's an interesting... It's an odd kind of collection of sounds to try to say. It's felt odd in my mouth, like a penis. I mean, what? Anyway. Generating a weak magnetic field and allowing more solar radiation into the atmosphere. To deal with this, most forms of life on Playin evolved some form of metallic exoskeleton to protect themselves. Their reflective, plate-like skin makes Turians less susceptible to long-term, low-level radiation exposure. Interesting. I don't think I remember reading this. Again, I haven't read a lot of... I never sat down and read a lot of these before, so a lot of this is essentially reactions to the content of these. It's kind of part of why I wanted to do it for my Let's Plays, because I knew it would actually motivate me to do it. To actually sit here and read it all for y'all and not just me. And it is very enjoyable going through it for myself, regardless. But Turian's thick skin does not stop projectiles and directed energy bolts. Although life on Playin is carbon-based and oxygen-breathing, it is built on dextroamino acids. This places the Turians in a distinct minority on the galactic stage. The Quarians are the only other known sapient dextroprotein race. The food of humans, Asari, or Solarians, who evolved into levo-amino acid-based biospheres, who evolved in levo-amino acid-based biospheres, will best pass through Turian systems without providing any nutrition. At worst, it will trigger an allergic reaction that can be fatal if not treated, and also vice versa, as we learn. I don't know if this is in any kind of, if this is based on any kind of real science, but it makes a lot of sense. If your race evolved in an extremely different environment than Earth, perhaps your food, the types of things that are food to you, that are actually food, and it gives you nutrition sense that basically food requires, to actually be classified as food, if you think about it, would be different than perhaps, at least perhaps would be different than the types of chemicals, I suppose you could say, that make up our food. It's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Types of molecular structures is probably the better way to say that. Anyway, very interesting. Actually, wait, hold on. I don't think I read everything. Hold on. Wait. Okay. Yeah, I did not read it. Oh, hold on. No, that's my journal on my Codex, you derpy durgan. Oh, yeah, okay. Not even close. Continuing on. Aliens, extinct races. Protheans, data disks. Despite all... Yeah, I remember reading Beacon now. I thought about that for a second. Despite all the evidence confirming the existence of the Protheans, little is known about their culture and society. From time to time, dig sites will yield new clues. But after 50,000 years of decay, little of value is unearthed. Recent research is focused on the discovery of Prothean data disks. On their own, they are frail and rarely found in one piece. Occasionally, however, an intact disk will be discovered within a console or reading device. To date, over 3 dozen disks have been recovered, and a few of those have even been restored to the point where researchers can begin analyzing them. Though it may be some time before scientists discover a way to transfer the data off the disks, they are currently considered the most tangible leads for learning more about the Prothean culture. Very interesting. Not sure what else to say about that. Pretty straightforward there, but very interesting. Again, more intact Prothean technology that still works. Awesome. at least to a degree. Alright, Protheans, Mars ruins. After 20 years of manned research outposts and nearly a century of robotic exploration, the European Space Agency's Lowell City became the first permanent settlement of Mars in 2103. Within a decade, the United States and China had founded permanent settlements as well. Yeah, United States and China sounds about right. Always competing for the top spot on the economy and everything else. We need to stop that, in my opinion, over here in America. And China would, I'd say, do well to stop too, but well. The South Polar region of Playin developed a Bermuda Triangle reputation. Satellites detected intermittent mass concentrations and magnetic field shifts. In 2148, prospectors working near Deseado? How do you say that, friends? And what language is that from? Would you know? I'm sure someone would know that. Usually, like, this stuff is named after real-world stuff, oftentimes. So what is the pronunciation of that word, that D word? Like, this D word right here. What is the pronunciation of it? Actually, I don't know if y'all can actually see my cursor, but it's that word that's spelled Deseado that you can see right there. Anywho, Crater discovered an underground complex, a Prothean observation post. The odd phenomena were generated by the operation and discharge of a Mass Effect core, struggling to function despite 50 millennia of neglect. Earth was electrified by the news. Humanity was unequivocally not alone. While courts battled over who owned the ruins, of course, God fucking damn it, the international scientific community coordinated a massive effort to access, translate, and interpret the data banks recovered from the facility. At least the science people were on it, because of course they would be. The facility proved to be a biosciences observation post built when Homo sapiens were first evolving on Earth. While the motives of the Protheans are not certain, translated records indicate that the facility was in regular communication with automated observation platforms in Earth orbit and on the lunar near side. The half-dozen Mass Effect spaceships found at the facility were presumably used for first-hand observation. So in this universe, the whole aliens observing Earth thing really did happen. It's very interesting. I bet that particular little tidbit was inspired, perhaps in part, or maybe in whole, by all the conspiracy theories about aliens watching Earth in real life. Anyway. Alright, aliens non-council races. Let's make 100% certain. Yeah, okay. It looks like Protheans are the only ones that are here, but I feel like there's other extinct races, or there would be in such a big, diverse galaxy. But, yeah, I can't think of any the more I think about it. But I'm wondering if there will be more listed there in the future. Maybe not in this game, but in 2 or 3. I don't remember whatsoever, pretty much. Maybe even Andromeda as well. Ships and vehicles. Starships, heat management. Dispersal of heat generated by... Well, hold on. I was going to skip over that one anyway. And technology. Okay, so we're actually done here. Because, like I said, I'm not too fond of... Actually, wait. There's apparently more aliens council races that I haven't read. Oh, whoops, Krogan culture. I'm not sure how I skipped over that one. I'm glad I looked. The harsh Krogan homeworld conditioned the Krogan psychology for toughness just as it did the body. Krogan have always had a tendency to be selfish, unsympathetic, and blunt. Yeah, I get that enough from Rex. And what's funny is Rex is very clearly, the more you talk to him, a pretty rare type of Krogan. Or, as far as I know, the only Krogan individual of his kind. Of the fact that he's clearly very wizened at this point and simply wants to focus on breeding and actually trying to keep their race alive instead of fighting whatever the fuck they want to, and fighting just because. They respect strength and self-reliance and are neither surprised nor offended by treachery. The weak and selfless do not live long. In their culture, looking out for number one is simply a matter of course. Honestly, that's more that's a pretty common human thing too. Like, I don't think every human being really, like, in the world, like, operates on essentially that, at least at a subconscious level, but most of us do, I would say, to some degree or another. It's just a fact of, I think, life and being alive. It's very interesting. After their defeat in the rebellions, the very concept of Krogan leadership was discredited. Where a warlord could once command enough power to bring entire solar systems to heel and become overlord, these days it is rare for a single leader to have more than 1,000 warriors swear allegiance to him. Most Krogan trust and serve no one but themselves. This solitary attitude stems in part from a deep sense of fatalism and futility, a profound social effect of the genophage that caused Krogan numbers to dwindle to a relative handful. Not only are they angry that the entire galaxy seems out to get them, Krogan are also generally pessimistic about their race's chances of survival. The surviving Krogan see no point in building for the future. There will be no future. Oof. Thankfully, that's not quite right. We learned that in 3, and that's awesome. And we will be trying to help them out that way. The Krogan live with an attitude of kill, pillage, and be selfish, for tomorrow we die. Yeah, that really does seem to... That's a real, like, you know... The more that, that you clearly see Krogan and how they act and how they think, you know, throughout the series, you realize that that really is... That sentence right there sums them up very, very well. Sadly, a lot of them. Thankfully, Rex is trying to move away from that thought, which might help a lot of Krogan in the future. In fact, we see the positive effects that start to happen as a result of his work in this, in 3, which I'm not sure if we're actually going to be able to save Rex here. I'm hoping so. I actually do not know what happens if you don't save Rex. So that would be an interesting thing for me, but I'd rather save Rex. He's cool. I don't think anyone wants to kill Rex. Actually, if you actually wanted to kill Rex on Vermire, let me know, friends. And why? Because I'm just curious. I won't judge you. I'm just very curious, because I don't think I've ever heard of anyone who really, like, prefers him to be dead to just shoot him right there. Anyway. That, I do believe, is everything for now, so I hope y'all have lovely days. Exitu Gemu Yas.